In the heart of Lagos, where the noise of traffic never fades and the streets never sleep, there once lived a man named Chuka. He was an ordinary man with extraordinary dreams, a father of 2 young boys, and husband to a woman whose love had turned cold over time. Life had been harsh to him. Once, he had his own mechanic workshop in Ojulegba, fixing cars and laughing with his apprentices, but when the government demolished his shop during a road expansion, everything crumbled. From that day, poverty became his constant companion. Chuka tried everything to rebuild his life. He drove kiki, carried cement at construction sites, and even sold recharge cards by the roadside. But no matter how hard he worked, the money was never enough to feed his family or pay rent. Hunger entered their home, followed by shame. His wife, Amara, grew bitter. She had once been a supportive woman, but as days turned into years of struggle, she began to see her husband as a failure. Her words became knives that cut deep. "Chuka, you are not a man," she would say, shaking her head. "Look at other men in this compound, they feed their families. You can't even buy meat for soup." At first, he kept quiet. He thought she spoke from frustration. But soon, her insults became daily poison. She stopped sharing his bed, stopped serving him food, and began to look at him with disgust. She even told their sons, "Don't end up like your father. Lazy and useless." Those words broke him more than hunger ever could. One evening, as he sat by the roadside with his head in his hands, an old friend named Segan approached him. Segan was one of those men who vanished for years and returned suddenly rich. He wore gold chains, drove a tinted SUV, and spoke with pride that came from power. "Chuka," he said, placing a hand on his shoulder, "why do you let poverty disgrace you? There are ways to make money if you're willing to do what others fear." Chuka looked up, his eyes tired. "Segan, I've tried everything," he said softly. "Tell me what you know." Segan smiled faintly. "There's a man in Ajij," he whispered. "They call him Baba Koton. He helps men rise. He doesn't ask for blood, only courage." That night, Chuka couldn't sleep. He thought about his wife's insults, his children's empty plates, and his friend's golden wristwatch. At midnight, he made up his mind. The next morning, he told Amara he was going to look for work in another state, then took a bus straight to Ajij. The road was long, filled with thoughts that battled in his heart. He arrived at a small shrine behind a mechanic village, a place that smelled of palm oil and something darker. Inside sat Baba Koton, old and frail, his eyes red like burning coals. "My son," the old man said slowly, "I know why you are here. You want wealth. You want to silence hunger and shame." Chuka nodded, his throat dry. "Yes, Baba. I want to change my life." The old man sighed and said, "Every wealth comes with an exchange. The gods do not take money, they take value. To receive gold, you must offer blood." Chuka froze. "Baba, I can't kill anyone." The old man smiled faintly. "No one said you should kill. But the gods will collect what you love most. That is the rule." Those words echoed in his mind as he left the shrine. What he loved most. He thought of his children, their laughter, their innocence, and he pushed the thought away quickly. "No," he whispered to himself. "It won't come to that." Days later, things changed mysteriously. Money began to flow. He received calls for jobs he hadn't even applied for. People began to respect him again. Amara's attitude changed overnight. She smiled again, cooked for him, and bragged to her friends that her husband was now a successful man. For the first time in years, peace returned to their home. Or so it seemed. One night, their youngest son, Toby, woke up screaming from a nightmare. "Daddy," he cried. "There's a man in my dream. He said you promised him something." Chuka's heart stopped for a second, but he quickly hugged the boy and said, "It's just a dream, my son." Yet deep inside, he knew something was wrong. 2 days later, Toby fell sick. The hospital found nothing wrong with him, but his body kept weakening until one morning he stopped breathing. Amara screamed and fainted beside his body. Chuka buried his son in silence, his face blank, but that night, as he sat alone in the living room, he heard a whisper behind him, "One done go. Two left." His blood froze. He turned, but no one was there. He tried to pretend it was his imagination. But weeks later, his second son, Ibuka, also began to fall sick in the same way. The boy's skin became pale, his eyes hollow. Chuka prayed, fasted, and gave offerings at church, but nothing helped. One night, as the boy slept on his lap, he coughed once, and stopped breathing. That was when Amara broke completely. She screamed at her husband, hitting him with her fists. "What is happening to us? What did you do?" she cried. Chuka snapped. "You pushed me," he shouted. "You and your insults. You said I wasn't a man, now you're reaping what you planted." Amara fell to the floor, sobbing, "Chuka, what have you done?" But he couldn't stop anymore. The nightmares got worse. He began seeing his two sons standing at the end of the hallway at night, watching him silently. Their faces pale, their eyes full of sorrow. He ran back to the shrine, trembling. "Baba, I've lost everything. My sons are gone." The old man looked at him coldly and said, "The gods have taken what they were owed. But your sacrifice is not complete." "What do you mean?" Chuka shouted, "The one who made you take this path, her turn is next." Chuka screamed, "No." But the voice inside his head wouldn't stop repeating the same thing. He went home, shaking, sweating, and crying. Amara tried to comfort him, thinking he was ill, but when she touched his shoulder, something inside him snapped. His eyes went blank, his mind filled with echoes of voices calling his name. Before he realized what he had done, he struck her. The room went silent. His wife lay lifeless on the floor, and he stood there staring at his bloody hands. Then came laughter, not his own, but from somewhere inside his head. From that night, Chuka lost his mind. He walked through the streets barefoot, talking to himself, calling his children's names. "Toby. Ibuka. Come back, I didn't mean it." He would cry, as people threw stones at him, calling him mad. His wealth disappeared as quickly as it came. His cars were taken, his house sold, his friends vanished. He became a ghost in the same city he once ruled. One morning, they found him under a bridge in Acadia, clutching a torn photograph of his family, smiling faintly as if he finally found peace. Some said he died in his sleep. Others said the gods came to take what was left of his soul, but his story spread across the city like wildfire. People whispered it in churches, markets, and bars. They said, when a man allows greed to replace patience, he becomes the sacrifice himself. To this day, no one knows where Baba Koton went. His shrine disappeared after Chuka's death. Some said the gods collected their servant too. Others believed that new desperate men will always find him again, because as long as humans desire wealth without work, the path of blood will never be empty. And so, the legend of Chuka lives on, told by street preachers, sung by bus conductors, and feared by men who look at their children and remember that money can never replace the warmth of family, because in the end, all that wealth bought him was madness, and a grave that carried no peace. If this story touched your heart, don't scroll away. Hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more deep stories that open the eyes and touch the soul. Remember, every view keeps African stories alive.